With 36 heroes in the game already and the Fantastic Four on the way, Marvel Rivals already has a lot of options to choose from. However, the game's still missing a lot of characters that I personally want to play, so today I'll be going through the characters that I want to be added. This list is in an order of least wanted to most wanted, however, I do want some more than others, and fair warning, this video may just be X-Men characters. So, let's get into 12 characters I want in Marvel Rivals. Gambit is my favorite X-Men and Marvel character of all time. I don't really know why he is, but I just love him so much. Anyway, I think that he'd be a great addition to Rivals, and I believe that he'd be a duelist. For his main attack, he could swing his staff in a pattern of directions, such as his Fortnite pickaxe animation. For his secondary fire, he could shoot out his explosive cards towards the enemies during splash damage. I think a cool ability he could have is the more damage he takes, the more kinetic energy he builds up, which increases the damage of his secondary fire. For his ultimate, I think throwing out a bunch of cards in a wide area would be pretty cool. You can have Gambit without Rogue, and vice versa. I think Rogue would be a very cool character, as she'd be a flying melee character, and maybe a tank, as she's pretty durable. For her main attack, I think punches would be fine. I really don't know what her secondary fire could be. Maybe her first attack could be a flurry of punches, and her second is just like one big punch. However, I do have a cool idea for her ultimate. She could dash around with her gloves off and touch each of the enemy heroes in an area, sapping them with their powers. And by sapping, I mean their cooldowns are increased and their damage is decreased, as well as getting damaged by the attack. Now, this might be a bit OP, but Rogue is an OP character, so it's on brand. She'd obviously have a team up with Gambit, maybe increasing his damage and her health getting increased from it. Now, I'm not sure how popular Darkhawk is nowadays, considering that I was born after he was already unpopular, but he's a pretty cool character from the 90s. He's a spacefaring guy in a cool tech suit, and honestly, that's really all I know about him. I just think he looks really cool. However, I think Rivals would be a great way to repopularize the character again and have another flyer similar to Iron Man, but, maybe he could counter Iron Man, because that piece of junk needs to be blown out of the sky constantly. I think if they were to add him, he'd be a DPS, as he has a lot of weapons, and to differentiate him from Iron Man, I'd have it so that he can't fly infinitely, but he has a higher damage output than Iron Man. Nightcrawler is my second favorite X-Men. He's very cool. For Nightcrawler, he'd be a duelist. His gimmick would obviously be teleportation. Maybe he could have 3 charges and could aim where he teleports similar to Magic, but he'd have more control over where he ends up. For his main attack, he could use his 2 swords to attack rapidly for lighter damage, and for a secondary, he could use his tail to attack with a 3rd sword for higher damage, but slower attack speed. For his ultimate, he could rapidly teleport and damage specific characters in an area. That ultimate may be too similar to Psylocke's ult, but it's the best idea I have for him at the moment. I believe that the game needs more healers, and who better to be healer than the big furry blue guy, Hank McCoy. I think a cool gimmick for him would be that he could crawl on ceilings and jump around from object to object, which would make him unique as most of the healers in the game don't have good mobility. As a consequence of this, maybe his healing could be worse overall, as he'd be much harder to kill than the other healers. He could have team-ups with other mutants that could increase his healing and maybe increase their health or something. God knows Wolverine could use some more health. Black Knight would be a cool character to have in the game, and it could honestly be any version of him, although Dane Whitman would probably be the best version to go with. Another melee swordsman would be cool, and I think that he'd be a tank and not a DPS like Magic. He could provide shields for his team while also being able to do moderate damage. However, I think he'd be slower than the average tank. He could also have team-ups with Blade and Moon Knight since they've all been part of the Midnight Suns, but being able to run around with the Ebony Blade in Rivals would be awesome. Another character that's in the same sort of realm as Black Knight is Elsa Bloodstone, who I think would make a good sniper and an interesting addition to Rivals. I think that she should have one-shot potential like Hawkeye, still not sure why they didn't give Black Widow one-shot potential, but also have some other abilities to round out her kit, such as a bit of self-healing, as that's a part of her abilities in comics. The Bloodstone that she possesses gives her superhuman strength and endurance, and for her ultimate, I think she could share those abilities with her team in a certain area for a certain amount of time before she has to take it back. Colossus could bring more variety to the tanks in the game, as his metal skin could provide a lot of protection for his team. He could perform the fastball special with Wolverine and give a boost to his sister Magic. I think a cool idea for Colossus is that the more damage he takes, the harder his metal skin becomes, but at a cost, his movement speed is reduced. But he could really be a human wall for the team that could effectively protect the team's healers. The leader of the X-Men, Cyclops, would be a great duelist add to the game. His Optic Blast could be a beam attack that slowly pushes back the enemy and deals damage. I think his abilities would revolve around his Optic Blast as well as rallying his team. Maybe he could have an area of effect ability that boosts teammates' damage for a certain amount of time, and he could team up with other X-Men to increase the duration and potency of the rallying cry. For his ultimate, he could take off his visor and unleash a large Optic Blast that knocks back enemies and deals massive damage. Daredevil would be a very unique and cool character that can be added to the game. I think a cool gimmick for him is that he would be able to see vague outlines of enemies through walls that get more intense depending on how much noise they are making. I also think that him being able to swing around using his batons would be really cool. He'd probably be a DPS similar to Iron Fist. as in you go in, deal a bunch of damage, and then get out. I think he could team up with characters like Spider-Man that maybe could increase his baton swings or just, the effectiveness of them. Ghost Rider would be a really cool addition to the game, and being able to ride around on his motorcycle as a movement ability would be really cool. For his ultimate, the Pennant Stare would be a really cool ability, with the damage scaling with how many kills the enemies in the area of effect has. For his main attack, he could whip his chains around. For his secondary, he could pull out some SMGs and then fire them quickly. The concept image I use is of Robbie Reyes, but honestly, any version of Ghost Rider could work. The final character I think should be added is the X-Men Iceman. I think he could glide around on his ice and put up ice walls similar to Groot's walls, and I think he could beat a tank. Putting up ice to block enemies and their damage would be very similar to Groot. However, I think he could also have a gimmick where the more he hits enemies with his attacks, the more frozen they get until they get stunned for a certain amount of time. Basically, how Lou's basic attack works in Brawl Stars. That's all the characters I could think of right now, so that's the end of the video. Let me know in the comments if you want more videos like this one, or if you want different styles. Thanks for watching, and have a great day.